This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
This special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is brought to you by The Athletic, which is premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. And listeners of this very episode of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network can save 30% on an annual subscription to The Athletic by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. And welcome to this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, focusing on the United Shore Professional Baseball League and championship weekend taking place for the USPBL at Jimmy John's Field this weekend from Friday through Sunday. I'm your host, Vito. You start off with Friday night's matchup featuring the Utica Unicorns versus the Westside Woolly Mammoths in a quarterfinal matchup. On Saturday night at 7:05, it is the semifinal round, and the Eastside Diamond Hoppers have a bye to that round and will be taking on the winner of Friday night's clash between the Unicorns and the Woolly Mammoths. Then Sunday's match of the championship game of the 2018 USPBL season will feature the number 1 seed, Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, a team that has won 3 straight regular season championships in the USPBL. And the Beavers, managed by Chris Newell, a guest on Tigers Talk this week, are looking for title number 2 and back-to-back titles. So, a fun, hugely exciting weekend taking place at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica for championship weekend. Once again, games taking place from Friday night through Sunday afternoon. Friday and Saturday's games taking place at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Sunday afternoon, the championship game starting at 1:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with all that being said, the guest on this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is none other than USPBL CEO and founder Andy Appleby. Enjoy. And it is Andy Appleby, founder and CEO of the United Shore Professional Baseball League. Andy, how are you doing?
Well, fantastic, Vito. Big weekend coming up.
I know, exciting times there in the USPBL. And in its 3rd year of existence in downtown Utica, lovely Utica at Jimmy John's Field, how far do you think the league has come?
Well, extraordinarily long way, really, Vito. When you think of, a few years ago when we first started, no one knew much about this league. No one knew about our brands, our teams, the level of baseball, the level of interest with families. And it's really been a remarkable climb. I think that if someone had come to our very first game on May 30th, 2016, they would have been blown away with the ballpark, with the experience. But what I think I'm most proud of is that almost every single day since that time, and I don't exaggerate when I say this, we have improved the whole game day experience, the league, brand, our merchandise, virtually every aspect of our ballpark is markedly better than what it was when we first started.
Andy, tell our listeners about the game day experience. If somebody goes out to Jimmy John's Field, Vito and I have been out there several times. It's really fun, enjoyable, really close to the action, affordable prices. From your perspective, tell us and sell us on Jimmy John's Field.
Well, it's not only the nicest ballpark, it's one of the most, if not the most successful ballpark in the country. And we have a very sophisticated game presentation, really a major league quality across the board. So very much of a premium experience at a less than premium price. We have, I like to think there's something for everyone. So we have a lawn area for families. They can come for $6 a ticket. That's the lowest price ticket in sports. That said, we've got a suite that's right behind home plate, the closest in baseball history. That's major league quality, boutique quality in every way, shape, or form. So, you could bring Bill Gates in there and there's no way he wouldn't say, this is cool.
And by the way, the Cabana Suite was lovely. It was terrific. John and I, my co-host here that just asked you that question, we were there with our Detroit Sports Podcast Network brethren and colleagues, and it was a terrific experience, terrific game day experience. And Andy, what would you say when people ask, and I'm going to ask you now, how the USPBL stands out in comparison to other developmental baseball leagues?
Well, that's a great question. And, there is really no comparison. Most other leagues like ours wouldn't spend $10 on player development. We spend $1 million on player development. We have the latest in musculoskeletal, advanced strength and conditioning, sabermetrics, video analysis. Our analytics department alone this summer featured 18 to 20 people. So, we're way ahead of the curve in all of that. And it really gets back to our philosophy. Most other leagues like ours, they just need theater performers for the business side of this to, create content. Yes, I don't dismiss that we need content, and we do as well. But our whole philosophy from day one was to make every single player better. And because of that, we've gone from what my goal was to get maybe 1 or 2 players a year signed, all the way up now to 25 players that have been signed by major league organizations. And they're not signing them just for the fun of it. They're signing them because these players have gotten better since they've been with us. In fact, most of the pitchers are at their all-time high in velocity in their whole life. At our ballpark. And that has a lot to do with Justin Orndorff, our director of baseball operations, who really teaches these kids to throw using more of their core, more of their big muscles. And not only are they at their all-time high in velocity, but we've hardly had a sore arm in our league in over 3,000 innings.
On the line with us is Andy Appleby, CEO of the USPBL. Can you tell us, how did the USPBL come to be? And once the idea was hatched, take us through a little bit. Once you have the idea, how does the Jimmy John's Field get made? And how did you organize this league? Take us through it, because it's really fascinating in such a short time, the buzz that the USPBL has generated.
Well, so we had owned, I got my start with the Detroit Pistons, was there for 12 great years. We were Arena of the Year pretty much every year I was there when the Palace got started, Amphitheater of the Year with Pine Knob Amphitheater. So we were always known as one of the very, very top sports management companies in America. And so I really had a chance to, work with guys like Tom Wilson, who was really, in my opinion, the father of sports team marketing, if you will. So I was able to get sort of that PhD in sports management and sports marketing. So this ballpark and this league allowed me to use every good idea I've seen or done over the last 32 years. And so there are so many different innovations just on the ballpark and the marketing and the design. There's probably 10 different innovations that have never been done before anywhere in the world. And then from a league perspective, has its own set of best practices. We talk about the evolution of this. We bought a minor league baseball team 20 years ago, almost to the day, and we fell in love with minor league baseball back down in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so I always wanted to kind of bring it here to Southeast Michigan. Took a long time to put together, probably a 10-year overnight success. So I had a lot of time to develop all these cool ideas. And but just what we could have done and what we were thinking of doing maybe 10, 12 years ago was just joining someone else's league. But the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to create our own league that allows us to do everything the way we want to do it. We don't have to consult with a bunch of owners to get consensus on anything. If we want to do it, we just do it. And that's what we were able to do, for instance, with our whole time limit that we instituted midway through this season. But it was really something that when you create your own league, it's not easy to do for a lot of reasons. But if you can pull it off, it's so much better, because now we have all of our games during the best weather Michigan has to offer. And you know that some of the minor league teams in Toledo and Lansing and Midland and Grand Rapids, they have to play sort of that same schedule as the major league teams. Like the Tigers have to start in, late March, and we all know what late March is like here in Michigan. But starting in mid-May and then ending this weekend in mid-September, it's really the best of all worlds. It's not just the best weather Michigan has to offer, but we probably feature the best weather in the whole country during that 4-month period. The other that makes it a huge advantage is that we play all of our games on weekends, which is really the holy grail, not just of sports marketing and sports management on any level, but particularly minor league baseball when moms and dads don't have to work the next day. So we kind of have the best of all worlds when it relates to that. And so it greatly increases the likelihood of success when you have a schedule like that with mostly great weather and mostly on the weekends. And then, of course, from a baseball perspective, being independent. Now, certainly having an affiliation with the Tigers, or in the case of Fort Wayne, the Padres, is not a bad thing to have, of course. But what I love about being independent is that we can market our players to all 32 teams versus just, being beholden to the Tigers or the Padres or whoever that affiliate is. So being able to market to all 32 teams, all of which, by the way, have their different needs, wants. We can monitor if the Mobile AA team of the Padres loses their catcher on a Saturday night. We can monitor that and, have a catcher ready to go for them. So that wouldn't be the case if we were just married to one team.
And Andy, you and your staff at the USPBL have really optimized the baseball watching experience with the aforementioned weather, the fan-friendly experience, and with this time limit that you brought up already. And let's dive into that a little bit. I think it's just so highly innovative with this 2.5-hour time limit, specifically not starting an inning after 2 hours and 25 minutes have been played in a game for all your public games, all the games that have been played from Thursday through Sunday. Now, Andy, where did that idea come from, and how successful do you think it has been already for the USPBL?
So it was really something that was born out of 3-hour and 50-minute 9-inning games. And, it happens a lot in the major leagues these days. It still happens with us. And one thing that people sometimes don't understand is there's a real delicate balance here from the entertainment and the family side of things, and then the baseball and the baseball purists that are out there. And so it's tricky, but the bottom line is that nothing really pains me more than to see a family walking out of our ballpark, before fireworks or before they get their kids a chance to run the bases, because those are real highlights of what we've created here, particularly running the bases. Although it seems, if you don't have kids or, it sort of seems like, oh, whatever. But, for kids, that leaves an indelible mark on them when they get to run the bases. It's just so much fun, and they get to play, run the bases. And we're not like other teams that might have it, Sundays in August, they get to run the bases. I mean, we run the bases every single night, and these kids just absolutely love it. And so when we have 4-hour 9-inning games, it's just not conducive to the schedules of people today. And so you're seeing baseball working really, really hard to improve the level of entertainment. And again, they have to go and have player associations and tons of different ideas and opinions with 32 different owners. I will tell you right now that if they had the autonomy we have, they would put a time limit on too.
Well, I think it's helpful because of the attention span of these fans, too. And if you want the kids to run the bases, to stay all 9 innings of these games, they take long. And at the major league level, like you said, they're almost 4 hours long. So on average, too, and that's just way too darn long. And I guess my only beef is, you brought up the kids running the bases. How about the adults? We would love to run the bases, too. I know John and I, my co-host here, but all joking aside, how about now to a serious question? What are your thoughts on expanding from 4 teams to 5 or 6? And what's your timetable on that as well?
Well, we're absolutely active in that right now. We'd love to build a new ballpark, somewhere west of Utica, probably more like, western part of the state. But certainly in the not too distant future, we want to build a ballpark in Indianapolis, Columbus, Nashville. And I recognize that all of those have AAA teams in downtown areas. But we're looking, our niche, I think, is more in the outskirts where the burgeoning suburbs of all those different cities are. Probably a similar situation to Utica, where we're 26 miles away from downtown, but it's still a long way, especially for people living on the east side, to go downtown. I'm not saying that we're competing with the Tigers in any way, shape, or form, because I think we're good for the Tigers. We get lots and lots of young kids that love baseball, and hey, we're never going to have Miguel Cabrera playing for us, and we're never going to have the World Series. But again, I think that when it relates to those other cities, there's some really good markets there that we can expand to. So my whole goal is to have 9 or 10 different ballparks and up to 20 teams. At that point, guys, we'll be a little more of a conventional bus travel league. But in the meantime, I needed these first 3 or 4 years to really build the brand of the league, all the teams, and really make it a really true summer destination for families across Southeast Michigan.
So really quick, how exciting will championship weekend be this upcoming weekend at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica?
It's tremendously exciting, and our job is to convey that excitement. And as I like to say, if people knew what I knew about these players and knew all the stories and the tight-knit nature of all these different teams over the last 4 months, they would literally hang on every pitch as I do, because it's a wonderful storyline. We've got 85 players in our league, representing 44 different states. They all were the best player in their little league, the best player in their high school, most of the time the best player in their college or even their collegiate league. And, some of these players that are 25, 26, they're chasing the dream today, but, maybe sadly throwing their last pitch of their whole baseball lives or their last at bat this weekend. And it is super emotional. We try to make it as big time as possible for the players. So we have a big championship trophy. We do a whole championship trophy celebration. Each one of the players who wins gets a championship ring with their name on it, which is incredible. So there's a lot riding on this. And as I said, it's one of those times a year where we put more of the focus on baseball because it's wonderful competition. The other thing I say quite often is, we're reality TV times 100, and not in a Dance Moms or Kardashian way at all, but in a real way where these players are all an 0 for 10 streak, from their next occupation. They run out every pop-up. They're great ambassadors for the league. They keep their nose out of trouble. They love signing autographs. They love hugging kids. It's really the truest form of sports and Americana that I can think of.
Well, and it's cool seeing these guys pursue their dreams, right? Lifelong dreams. And it should definitely be fun this weekend at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica for championship weekend in the United Shore Professional Baseball League. And with that being said, Andy, thanks for all the time. Best of luck to you, and we'll talk to you again down the line.
Yeah, I would say that, the games are 7:05 on Friday night, which is fireworks night, like we do every Friday night, all summer long. We're expecting tremendous crowds, and also on Saturday at 7:05, and then our championship game for all the marbles will start at 1:05 on Sunday.
Andy, thank you much. Really appreciate the time. And back here on this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and that was the CEO and founder of the United Shore Professional Baseball League in downtown Utica, and that is Andy Appleby. And Doc, good conversation there with Andy. I have spoken to him before at Media Day. Nothing really in-depth. This was more in-depth, obviously. First time he joined us over the airwaves at the DSP Network, and it was a pleasure having him on this special edition.
Awesome stuff. Again, if you're interested in going and checking out Championship Weekend this Friday through Sunday, USPBL.com. Very interesting conversation. A man that started a league. And so, like me, he's a visionary. I started my own broadcasting network. He started his own league. And I hope one day to have a chance maybe to have him in studio for an in-depth conversation, because when you start your own thing, there's a lot of information in terms of setting up a building, getting the funding for Jimmy John's Field, all the information that he learned from Tom Wilson and the Detroit Pistons and all the work there. He's got a lot of information. And one thing I will say, and one thing that has been noted, is that after each game, you will see Andy Appleby shaking the hands of the fans. And he's not just in the offices, in the suites and things like that. He's actually doing the work. So we enjoyed the conversation. USPBL.com if you're interested in checking out United Shore professional baseball league action.
And I just find it funny. You think you're on equal ground with Andy Appleby?
100%.
Equal ground as a visionary.
Vito,
Starting out this podcast network from the ground, right?
What are you looking at right here?
Hey, Credential Media now. And you're happy to be credentialed going to the Big House this Saturday, too, to cover a game against Western Michigan. Who would have thought that would happen for you, this bald man, 39 years old,
and I'm going to tell my story more and more, Vito, because you know why?
More and more.
You know why? Because you are a journalist with a degree. Adam is a journalist with a degree. Jason has also gone to broadcasting school. Everybody has gone to broadcasting school except for the owner.
And look at you, you didn't even need it. You're the best of the best, too. We all bow down to you, too.
I am the only one. I am technically the least qualified, educated broadcaster on the network, but I have taken myself as a layman, as you would say, as just a random guy off the streets, and have made myself a journalist or an entertainer or a purveyor of information, just as a fan. Basically, a fan-turned media member that is doing great things.
And those are always the best media members.
Amazing
wink, wink.
Conversations and amazing coverage that we've been able to give. And look, as we were recording, Brooke Fletcher, Fox Sports Detroit, former Miss Georgia, followed me as we were recording the
good
podcast.
For you. You feel so good about yourself now.
That's what we do here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Is we're the bridge from the fans to the professional organizations. And when big news breaks, people come to us, and it's great.
Definitely. And Chris Newell, by the way, Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, our guest on Tigers Talk this week. Make sure you check out that podcast. He's the number one seed. Playing on Sunday. Already has a bye to the championship game on Sunday, 1:05 start time, as Andy Appleby said himself on the special edition of the DSP Network doc.
Great stuff there. All right, let's get out of here. I look forward to Sunday, checking out the action championship weekend. Sunday, USPBL.com.
Should be fun. Adios.